Hello friends, welcome to Python tutorial series. In this part, we will be focusing on the list basics and some common list function. So first we will see some basic characteristics for the list. So let's get started. Yeah, the very first important characteristics for the list is lists are ordered and contain any arbitrary object. That means the order in which you insert the items into the list, that order is maintained unless you explicitly change the order by doing some operations on the list. Second one is the list can contain any arbitrary object. That means a single list can have objects of any type. In this example, my list contain objects of type integer, float, string, or for that matter, the function pointer. Or let's say if you create any file with then that file object can also be part of your list. It is not necessary that your list should have all the items of similar type. Here I'll be creating a list with some items. Let's say my list name is list1 equals to, I can create a list with item, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, just few numbers, and then I want to print my list. So here it is printing the list as 1, 2, 3, 4. When I say the list is ordered, that means the order in which you have inserted the item, the order is maintained. Let's say now if I add this 5 to list, the order will still remain same 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, let's say if I add any other item into the list with some append command. Append is a function to add the item into the list. This will add item at the end of the list. So let's say now I want to add item 6 into the list, and then again I want to print the list after adding the item. You can see the 6 will be added at the end of list. That means the order in which you inserted the items are maintained. And the second characteristics which I mentioned, that your list can have any type of object. Let's say I am declaring another list which is list2. This list can have, let's say this is my integer object, 10.5 is my float object, then I have a boolean object. Okay, I can have any type of object here. I can have, let's say, complex object. Then let me just print this list. So here it is printing this list successfully. That means in a list you can have any type of object. It is not necessary that all objects should be of same type. The next characteristics for the list is list items can be accessed with positive and negative index. The positive index starts with 0. And if you want to access any items from the list, you can directly access those with index without actually traversing to the list. Let's say if you want to access the item 2 of the list, then you can simply use index 2 to access the item. Similarly, you can also use the negative index in order to access the item from the end of the list. So let's say if you want to access the last item of the list, you can simply do that by using index -1. And positive index always starts with 0, whereas the negative index always starts with -1. The last item can be accessed with -1, second last item can be accessed with -2 index, and so on. Now let's just see how we can use indexes to access the list item. So here I have created a list1 with 7 items. And for better understanding, I have also listed the indexes for the item. So the positive index starts with 0, negative index starts with -7, and I am printing the list here. So it has printed the complete list. Let's say I want to access the first item from the list. So the first index is 0. So it will print A. Now let's say if I want to access the last item of the list, that's why I have given index as a -1. So it will print G. Let's run this program. It has printed G. Now let's say if I want to print all the items from the list starting with index 2. Okay, and all the items after index 2, then see here when I say index 2, the item at index 2 will be included in the result. That's why it has printed result as C, D, E, F, G. Now let's say I want to print all the items after index 2, but also I want to exclude last two items. So I can say -2. This will exclude the last two items. And when I say last two items, the item on index minus 2 will not be included in the result. Okay, so here it is printing CDE because I said that start at index 2 and exclude last two elements. That's why it printed the result as CDE. Now let's say if I want to print complete list, okay, then I can simply say colon colon. It will print my complete list as it is. Let's say I want to print complete list. Okay, so how this notation is interpreted? So this is basically start at index 0, then first colon, then what is your in last index, not index, basically length of your list. So here length of my list is 7, so I can simply say 7. And the last parameter is the step count, basically at what, after what step you want to print the item. So I want to print my list items after every one step. Basically I want, because I want to print all the items, so I have given it as 1. Let's say I want to exclude the alternate element, then I can simply say step as 2. Then in this case what it will do, it will print A, exclude B, print C, exclude D, print E, exclude F, this way. Okay, so it has printed A, C, E, G because I said step count as 2, that's why it has excluded the alternate element. If I say 3, in this case it will exclude the two elements in between. Okay, here it has excluded two elements in between. Now let's say I don't want to start my index at 0, but I want to start from the first item. Okay, I don't want to start from the 0th index, I want to start from B. So I can simply specify the index B and I mention a step count 2, hence these two elements will be excluded. It has printed E. After E, these two elements are excluded, but now nothing is there to print. That's why it has printed just B and E. Now let's say I want to print my list in the reverse order. So here I can simply say -1. This is basically similar thing, the start index, end index, and the step which you want to use. So here it will print my list into the negative order because I have given it as a step count as -1. So it will start from the end. Okay. Now let's say I want to start from the end, but I want to print alternate elements. So I can simply say -2. In this case, it will start from the end and print the alternate element. Okay. The next characteristics is list can have nesting at any depth. What does that mean? So in this example, I have three different lists, which is list 3, list 2, and list 1, where list 1 contains some items and one of the item is another list, which is list 2. List 2 is again a reference which is pointing to some third list, and third list is having some string values. Now let's just print list 1. What does it print? So it is printing A, B, C, D. This list is pointing to list 2. That's why it has printed the items of list 2, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And it has also reference to the list 3. And list 3 contains the items of this string items. This way, in Python, the list can have nesting at any depth. The next property of the list is lists are dynamic. That means whenever you append any items to the list size is expanded automatically. So here I have a list with this 6 item and I want to add another items into the list. So I have appended H and G, and let's just print the new list now. Whenever you add new item, the list size is automatically grown. You need not have to explicitly handle the expanding the size of the list even before adding items into the list. This is the dynamic property of the list. The next characteristics of list is a list are mutable. That means once you have created a list object, you can change that. So whatever data types we have seen so far, like integer, float, character, string, or boolean, those are immutable data types. That means once you have created the object of these data types, you cannot change its value later. For example, here I have declared an integer variable with value as 10, and let's just print its ID and value. So now it is printing its value as 10, and this is my object ID, which is holding the value as 10, integer 10. So let's say if I change my var int value to something else, here I am changing var int value to let's say 20 and then I'll print its ID. Okay. So here you can notice that whenever I change value of my var int, completely new object is created into memory. How we can check that? If you notice the integer ID printed for this new object is different than the first one. Okay, that means it is no longer the same object. For 10 it is one object and for 20 it is referring to different object. This is what the mutability is, where whenever you assign a new value to integer, it has created new object. That means you cannot modify existing object. Okay, that's why it is called as immutable. So why lists are called as mutable? Let's say I have this list one. I'll just print its values. So here I'll print the list one values and its ID of list one. Let's just see what is ID. Okay, this is my list and this is ID of my list. Now let's just try to modify the list by adding some value to it. So I'll just do list one dot append and I'll append some value to it. Let's say I append h to this. After appending value to list, I'll again print the list and its new ID. Okay. So here, if you notice, this is my original list and its ID was 7344, basically this ID. Then I have changed my list by adding some value h to this list and again printed the ID of the list. If you notice the ID for list is still same. That means list same objects allowing us to change the list value. So this is what we called it as mutability. Now let's just see some common functions. The first ones are how we can change the list items. So here I have a list with this six items. I can print my list. Okay. Now let's say I want to change some, I want to replace some value in the list. So I can simply do that by using the index. So let's say my list one and I want to change the first item. List one of one equal to item 1. I can replace it with item 1 and let's just print the change list. So here you can see here my first index item, which was B earlier, it has changed to item 1. So here when we insert, not insert, basically this is replace. This is replacing my item. Okay. Now let's say I want to change multiple values of my list. For example, I want to change two values of my list starting from index 1 and ends with index 3. Okay, here whenever we use this notion, right, always remember that first index is always inclusive and second index is not inclusive. When we say 1 and 3, so here my first index item is B, which will be replaced. Second index item will also be replaced, but third will not be replaced because index 3 will is non-inclusive. So let's just check the values, new values after replace. So here I want to replace basically two values. So I'll have to provide a list with two values. Okay. For example, item 1 and item 2. Let's just check new values. Okay. Here, if you see my B is replaced with item 1 and C is replaced with item 2, D, E, F are retained as it is. Okay. This is how you can replace the values in the list. You can use either positive index or negative index. Now, let's just say I want to insert some values in my list. Okay. In that case, I can simply use insert function, and insert is not a replace. In case of insert, it will insert the value and shift the values after that. Okay, let's say I want to insert value at first index and the value is, let's say, item 1. Okay, here if you notice, my 0th index is as it is. First index value, here I have inserted new value which is item 1, and after that whatever my values after the first index, we can see those as it is because this is insert but not replace. So here we can use insert if we want to insert new values in the list. If you want to add value at the end of list, we can use append function provided by Python. Here you can see I have this list one and I just used append to add item at the end. Let's just run this program. If you see my original list is the and the append function has appended item at the list. If I want to remove any item from the list, we can use a remove function. And for remove, we will have to give the item which you want to remove from the list. Here I have specified B. If you notice in my list one, I have two occurrences of B, which is one is at index 1 and second one is at index 6. So remove function will delete only the first occurrence of matching item. Okay, let's just run this program. If you see, it has deleted only the first occurrence. Last occurrence is as is in my list. Okay. Another function to delete the item from the list is we can use pop function, and for pop, if we don't give any argument, it will just delete the last item from the list. If you see my list A, B, C, D, E, F, and again B, it has deleted a B item from my list. If you want to delete some specific item at some specific index, then you can use pop with index. Let's say I have given index as a 3, as a D item is at index 3, so this should delete the item D. Here, if you see the result, my D object is deleted from the list. There is another function which is delete, basically delete. And here you can again give the index to delete the item. Let's say I want to delete the first item from the list. So you can use the delete function. So what is the difference between delete and the pop, which we have used earlier? So pop actually returns you the value. Okay, if you see, okay, this is my pop function. So if I want to get this value into some variable, right, where a equal to this thing. So pop will return this value into var a, and then you can use this var a value wherever is required. But delete function will simply delete the function and will not return any value to you. Okay. So this is the difference in pop and delete. If you want to loop through the list, how you can do that? So first thing you can use for loop for, let's say, item in list 1, and you can simply print your item. This will loop through complete list and you can print the item. Here you see it has printed the item. Let's say you want to loop in the reverse order. You can simply do this. It will reverse you through the it will traverse you through the reverse order. If you see, it is B, F, E, D, something like that. If you want to use the while loop for the traversal, this is again very simple. You can simply do, let's say I am using some counter, then while I less than length of my list, which is list 1, I can simply do print, and then I'll have to use a list 1 and then the index which I have used, and then increment the index I plus equal to 1. This will print my all items using while loop. Let's say now you want to sort your list. How you can do that? So you can use the built-in function provided by Python to sort the list. Here I have used this function sort, which will sort the list in ascending order. If you want your list to be sorted in descending order, you can use reverse equal to 2. This will sort your list in descending order. So if you see here, my list is sorted in the descending order. Let's say you want to sort your list with based on some key, you can specify that key. Here I have another list 2. Okay, first I will sort this list. Okay, here you can see my sorted list, which is the tech precedence, because we know that capitals will take precedence over the lowercase because of its ASCII values. Hence, D and take is printed first and then other values are sorted. Let's say now I want to sort these values by ignoring the cases. Okay. Then in that case, I can simply say key equal to, and I want to convert everything into lowercase even before sorting the value. So I can simply use the function string dot lower. Okay. Whenever we specify any function here, this function will be executed on all values of the list and then the list will be sorted. Now you see my list order is different than the first one because it is case insensitive sort. Okay. Here I have used the built-in function, but if you want to use any custom function, then you can also use that. You can define your own custom function and use that function, and just note that whatever function you have specified here will be executed first on your all keys and then your list will be sorted. So that's it for the list basics. In next video, we will focus on some advanced concepts around list and tuples. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to the TechShark channel for more such interesting videos. Thank you.